Please turn to page 205 for editing and revising. Before we go through and show you a few simple little lessons and feedback activities I do to teach my kids how to edit and revise, I want to stop and just give a little bit of background of what my philosophy is. First of all, I remember years ago we were told when I was in the primary grades, go ahead and have kids sit together and give feedback and have your children go ahead and revise and edit each other's papers. Well, what I found was if a child doesn't know enough information, if they don't have enough skills, how can they help revise and edit another child's paper? So what ended up happening was this. I remember it vividly. I was pulling a small group of children, and I had other kids teamed up, and they were writing, revising, editing, giving each other feedback while I pulled a small group of kids. We always have a couple of kids who are strong-willed, who are the ones who are going to let everyone know this is how we do everything. Well, my little one, who was that way this particular year, she went around and told everybody that a period was at the end of a line. Oh, no, 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 no. Put it at the end of the line, end of the line. So when my small group was finished and I was going around looking at different papers, I started to notice everybody was putting periods at the end of the line. It wasn't making sense. And then she stood and announced that she let them know that's how you put periods on a paper. Of course, I had to go back and reteach, and my kids kind of like the idea of just putting the period at the end of the line. It was very difficult to undo that. So what I want to show you is when we're editing and revising at the kinder and first grade level, we want kids to have the ability, once they've written out their papers, to revise and edit, but I'm going to, as the teacher, have to assist them in that. So I'm going to show you some ways that I help them with the editing and revising. In the next pages, we'll go ahead and look at that. Remember, when I was going through the narrative writing, the expository writing, and the opinion lessons, we did a lot of work on our organizers. We put capitals, we put periods, so we put our punctuation or our capitalization on the organizer. We had kids revise by orally rehearsing their papers over and over before they started writing. That's where, for most kinder and first graders, that's the best place to do your revising and editing. This chapter is just going to show you quickly some feedback when they actually write everything out. What would you do in order to give them more feedback for different types of revising and editing of their paper? The first thing they need to do when they go and write out their paper is, number one, just count how many periods do I have on my organizer. We had done that previously. So on their planner, their organizer that they had planned on, if they had 5 periods, then they would go to their writing and count 5. And if they didn't have 5, then they knew something was wrong. They would go to each sentence that they had formed orally on their organizer, and they would read it. They would put their finger where the sentence began and ended. They would read that and go to their paper and match the words where the sentence begins and ends to make sure they had the capital and the period. I find that's probably one of the best ways to help your kids revise and edit, by using their planner. These are just some activities that you can do when you pull their paper, and later on you're going to put some marks on the paper so that when you hand it back to them, they can go ahead and fix it, or you can work with them quickly to add some more information. So let me review. Editing and revising here. This is after they have already used their planner to edit and revise. That you have their finished work. You may be taking this work home, or later after the students have left, and you're going to give feedback on their paper so that when you hand it back to them, they can make the necessary corrections. Let's go through and see how this works. Turn to page 206. This is where we're going to do most of our work. Basically what it is I'm going to show you some ways to give kids feedback. And again, let me emphasize, they've already taken from their planner their writing. They orally rehearsed, did a lot of oral rehearsals so they could then write it out on their finished piece of paper. After they've written it out, they go back, they check for capitals and periods from their organizer. This is the paper that you're collecting from them, their finished piece of writing, and later on, you, the teacher, are looking at this writing and now you want to give some feedback. If they are having still difficulty with their capitals and stops, what feedback could you do? That will be our green light, red light feedback. If they are not adding adjectives, what will you do? We will do the dot the nouns feedback. If they have redundant words over and over again, we will do the redundant police feedback. So this is feedback that typically at that kinder and first grade level that you find a lot of errors even after they use their planner. This is the feedback that you would give to your students. So let's look at the first one, green light, red light. So you're going through your students' work, and what you need to do, if you know this particular child has difficulty remembering to put capitals and stops in their sentences, for every sentence, whether it's correct or not, the capitalization, you're going to put a green circle around the initial letter of the first word of every sentence, whether it's correct or not, because what you want children to do is go back and look at the green light, because the green light means green light, go. That's the beginning of a sentence. They look, and what do I need at the beginning of the sentence? A capital. So in this case, it's not correct. What do they need to do? They will go back and they will fix that. But what if there was a capital there? They're still learning to look. The problem that children have with capitals and stops is this, is they never look. We end up doing the looking. So they're writing out something and you look at their paper and they're writing and you'll say, wow, that looks really great. Uh-oh, but what did you forget? And then you point and then they'll say, oh, capital and a period. And you're thinking, then do it. What happens is that we're always attending to it. They never pay attention. So what this does is you're going to go back and put a green where the capital goes, and you're going to go back and put a red circle where the periods go, whether they're there or not. Because now when a student who has trouble with capitalizations and stops, again, if a student has those in place, you're not giving this feedback. This is for students who don't. You're always going to have the beginning of a sentence, the initial letter circled, and the end of the sentence where the stop goes circled, whether it's there or not. When they get their papers back, they're going to go and look at the green and the red. And if it isn't correct, if there isn't a stop or a capital, then they will fix it. But what you're doing is you are teaching them to look, whether it's correct or not. And that's essential because we end up only showing children when it's incorrect to look, when they need to always look at where the capital and stops go. So at this lower level, we would do the green lights and red lights. As they get older, there's another process that they would go through where they would check for capitals and stops using green light, red light. But developmentally, kindergartners and first graders doing that activity would be very difficult. That's why you, the teacher, would put the green lights and the red lights on your students' writing who don't have those elements in place. They get their paper back, they check their green light, red lights. If they have a capital in their green lights, then they get all excited because they know they've done it correctly. If they don't, then they fix it and they're having to look. So green light, red light is children who have difficulty with those capitals and stops. When you get their papers back, for you to give feedback, for you to correct the papers, you're putting a green and a red, whether it's correct or not. Now let's go to children who omit descriptive language, those adjectives. Many times they may even have them on their organizer. And when they go to write, that's one of the first things that falls out are adjectives. So what we want to do is we want to do something called dot the nouns. So again, the kids have written out their paper, they've orally rehearsed from their plan, they've used their plan to help revise and edit their actual written piece. They've given you now their finished product. This is for children who, when you collect those finished pieces, are still leaving out those adjectives. So you do dot the nouns. You will go and dot all the nouns in the sentence. And once they have the dot the nouns, when you give the papers back, any students in the class that are dot the noun students will meet with you in a small group. You don't want to have to meet one-on-one with every child if this is the same teaching point. And at kinder and first grade, this is a pretty typical teaching point that they forget to add their adjectives. So you would dot the nouns, And the children that you dotted nouns for in their finished piece of writing, you would have that on a list and call them over in a small group, and you would walk through the process of how to add adjectives to their nouns. So the first step is everybody's going to together see how you do this. So you're going to write a sentence up on the board. So maybe I have, my sister kicked the soccer ball over the fence. Then I'm going to tell the students, oh, look what I have. I have dots on special words. Those are my nouns. And then I have the kids go, a noun, a person, place, thing, or idea. That's right. A noun is what? A person, place, thing, or idea. Now I'm going to go over here and look at my first noun, sister. That's a person. Ball, that's a thing. Fence, that's a thing. So those are nouns. And what do we learn that we want to do with our nouns? Add fancy words, adjectives to describe them. So now that we know we have dots, we have to now look to see, did we describe the nouns? Well, the first question we have to ask is, are the nouns worthy? The first question we have to ask each noun is it worthy? Is that noun worthy of being described? Meaning, is it important in the sentence? So how do we do that? We go back and we read it. We say, my sister. Is sister important in this sentence? Let's see. My sister kicked the soccer ball over the fence. She kicked the soccer ball over the fence, so is she important? Yes. Then what do? Draw a caret, add a line. So we draw a caret and a line. So the first step is the dotted noun important? And if it is, then we draw a caret and add a line. How do I know if it's worthy or important? I say the noun sister, and then I say it in the sentence. Is my sister important? My sister kicked the soccer ball over the fence. Is she important in that sentence? Yes. Then she needs to be described. Caret, line. Let's look in front of ball, soccer ball. Oh, we already said what kind of ball it was. I don't need to add any more there. Let's go to the next one, fence. Is the fence important to this sentence? Is it worthy of being described? Let's see. So we're looking at fence. My sister kicked the soccer ball over the fence. Is the fence important for the reader to see that fence? Yes, because she kicked the ball over it. So what do? Draw a caret, add a line. Not all nouns will be described. In this case, we have these two that need it, and they are worthy. They're important. We're going to now take each noun and put it in the phrase, what kind of. So let's review. We now decided which dotted nouns were important. Once I do that with my sentence up here, then all the students with their papers are going to look at each dotted noun and they're going to do the same thing. They're going to decide, is that noun worthy? Is it important in that sentence? And as they're drawing carets and adding a line, I'm checking and giving them feedback for their own individual writing. After I have all the students drawing carets and lines for their dotted nouns on their paper, I go back up to my example. Watch me, boys and girls. Now I need to add a fancy word. I need to add an adjective to describe the noun. So what does an adjective do? An adjective describes the noun. What does an adjective do? An adjective describes the noun. How can it describe the noun? So now we're going to look at adjectives. And how do they describe the noun? They describe the noun by, let's put a heart here, telling you the emotion, how the noun feels, or its personality, if it's grumpy, silly, funny, or using the 5 senses. So I just put an eyeball with a number next to it. Because now I have to tell you what the noun looks like, or how it smells, or tastes, or sounds, or feels, as in when I touch it, not the emotion.